Rev up your engines! Here we go. Old Elon Musk and Tesla's at it again. He bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. Who knows what game he's playing now? And Bitcoin reached $48,000 for the first time. And he's saying that he's going to accept Bitcoin to buy his cars. I guess he's going to the bottom of the barrel now. He'll do anything to sell his cars. If you really look at it, that's kind of a crazy thing where he's going to accept Bitcoin for his cars. But I mean, now it's up to $48,000. Okay, what if it goes down to $20,000? Some guy buys a car today and it's worth $48,000, and the next day it's worth $20,000. He just lost half of the money he sold the car for. And I mean, I'm just fascinated by this Bitcoin stuff because years ago I was doing some business in Seattle with these internet dudes, and I met a bunch of Bitcoin guys. And I said, you know, I understand how Bitcoin works, but I said, I really don't comprehend why any government would allow Bitcoin to be used in their country, because you basically undermine the currency of the country. And that's how people do business with currency, right? And if you undermine the currency, it takes 2 seconds for the government to say you can't use Bitcoin. It's illegal in our country. China did it for a while back, and now they let it back with some kind of restrictions and stuff. But I asked this guy who's a real expert on Bitcoin in Seattle, and he said, Scotty, it'll always be around. I said, well, why do you think it's going to be around? He said, because Bitcoin is totally untraceable. He said, actually, the majority of the use of this stuff is for laundering money. People want to launder money. Hey, great, use Bitcoin. Like back in the days of cocaine in Miami, that made all the laws in the United States that if you put more than so many thousands of dollars in a bank now, you got to show where it came from, where it went, and you're not going to be able to launder all this cocaine money in the banks. The banks, of course, were involved in it too. A bunch of them ended up going to jail for the deals they did. So, I mean, I don't think I'd want to be putting my money into something that one of the big reasons for people to launder money is what's behind a lot of this stuff. So, I don't know. I guess he'll do anything to sell his Teslas and try to make markets go up or down. If you really look at the history of Bitcoin, very few places actually accept it as money. It's more people playing the game and they're investing to try to make money and then sell it to somebody else. You don't generally see people actually buying stuff with it. So I'd hold my horses on any of that stuff if I were any of you. Well, here's a real shocker. Consumer Reports came up with a conclusion in an article that German cars are the most expensive cars to repair in the United States. Whoo, there's a no-brainer. In all the categories of expensive repairs, guess what's there? Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and Porsche. But not always top of the list. For example, if you need to replace struts on a Nissan GTR, it's going to be $5,800. And it's only $4,800 on a Porsche Panamera, so... They're not always the most expensive, but you got to realize what the Nissan GTR, that's a limited production car. Take the GTRs. They start at $113,000. Compare that to like an Acura NSX of 2021. They start at $157,000. I don't even know if they compared the Acura to the Nissan replacement. Might have been even more expensive. Those NSXs, the Acuras, they're just real fancy racing cars to begin with, and now they have all the hybrid technology involved in it with motor boost. They're not selling very many of them. They're not making that many, and they're selling even fewer. Every month, they're maybe in the hundreds. Sometimes it was in the teens in 2020 each month of what they sold in the United States. So you're in the elite atmosphere anywhere. But for cars that they sell thousands and thousands and thousands of, yeah, the German cars are the most expensive cars to repair. There's no arguing that. Between the dealerships that rip them off on high cost and the non-sharing of repair information. Though, I mean, nobody ever talks about Tesla. Who knows? Hardly anybody works on them. And I use all that information that professional mechanics use, right? And I pay for that every year. I can't even look at Teslas. They don't share the information with them. So I can't even get information to repair a Tesla because I can't get it on my data system. Old Elon won't share his repair information with anybody. So, it tells you the less you're able to get information on a car, the more you're going to pay when you go someplace. Because I have decent information on some of the German cars, but it's nothing compared to what the dealerships have. Their information systems are much higher level than even the all-data one is. So, you're going to have to go a lot of times to them, and they're going to have to, with the Mercedes, they have a star tester that costs $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 with all the data and the subscriptions they got to pay for. So, guess who pays for it in the long run? You, if you're dumb enough to buy one of those German cars. Alien5417 says, I got a small Suzuki car and there's blue smoke in the morning. I use Mobile One every 3,000 kilometers, and their filters. Mechanic says the engine needs to be overhauled. What do you think? All right. Well, blue smoke is a combination of burning oil but burning metal. The blue tint is the metal burning. And yes, your engine's wearing out inside. But as long as it runs, what the heck? The Suzuki cars are kind of junky little cars, which is rather ironic because they make some of the fastest, most dependable, long-lasting motorcycles out there. Screaming fast, dependable motorcycles. But their cars, they're kind of crappy. They pulled out of the United States a long time ago because Americans bought them and said, these junky little things, they can't get out of their own way, the engines blow up. I would personally just keep driving it. Then when it doesn't run anymore, if you want to keep it, put in a used engine from a junkyard. Just realize that they're junky little cars. And if you get a used engine, of course, it's a gamble, but if you can find a lower mileage one, it might last a while. Nobody rebuilds those things, at least here in the United States. I don't know anybody that ever rebuilt a Suzuki car engine. I know guys that rebuild a Suzuki motorcycle engine, but they're racing guys, and they rebuild them to make them as fast as possible. And of course, anybody that's driving 200 miles an hour, the engine's eventually going to blow up from going that fast. But if you drive them normally and keep them out of 140, under 140, they can last forever. And that's plenty fast enough on two wheels. And of course, the Suzuki cars won't even go that fast because they're too small. D-Boy Becker 88 says, I got an 01 Chevy Monte Carlo. I can't get it smogged in California, but 3 of the OBD monitors won't show ready. Evap, EGR, and heated oxygen sensor monitor. California, they won't smog a vehicle unless all monitors show ready. Okay, you're in a twilight zone. It's not failing putting a check engine light, but it's not ready. Now, the problem is your car is in a position where you already said you drove over 100 miles, hasn't changed. That it's not bad enough to trip a code, but it's not good enough to let the monitors run and say, okay. Now, you say heated oxygen sensor monitor isn't set to. I would replace the heated oxygen sensor first because that's often what goes bad. When that goes bad, it stops and it won't let it finish the rest. So change that and pray, that's all it is. But it is what? A 20-year-old Monte Carlo. It could be all kinds of problems causing it. But I have fixed some of those just by changing, when they have those codes, just the sensor, and it fixed it because it'll stop when the sensor's bad and then it can't fix the rest. If you do, and then that goes away, but others pop up, then you got a lot of other problems, which wouldn't surprise me with the Chevy. But you might get lucky and just changing the sensor will fix it. Sandy Lloyd says, Scotty, I got a 2002 GMC Sonoma 4.3 with a 4L60E automatic tranny with 161,000 miles. I've owned the truck for 7 years, never changed the fluid, so I added Lucas for preventive maintenance without draining a quart, which the directions bottle said it was okay to do. I immediately lost overdrive and have trouble getting to the third. All right, don't ever listen to nonsense like that. You never want to overfill a transmission. What you should have done is drain out exactly the same amount that's in that bottle. It's a little bit less than a quart. And then put that quart in. You'd never want to overfill. So if I were you, what I would do now is I would drain out that extra bit and see what happens. Now, if you drain that extra bit out and it still has lost overdrive and hard shifting into third, if you want, try an AC Delco filter kit with new fluid and see what happens. Because you got an 02 Sonoma 4L60E automatic transmission with 161,000 miles on it. That's pretty much the lifespan of those. And it's probably going to need to be rebuilt. I got numerous customers with GMCs, and the engines on those are decent engines, but the transmissions generally around 150, 160, 70. They almost always break and you got to rebuild them or replace them. That's just the lifespan. If you don't mind getting that out of a transmission, go ahead and buy one and then replace every 150, 160,000 miles. A lot of people will do that. It's on its end anyway, so you might as well try what I said, and if it doesn't work, then you're going to have to rebuild it anyways. Or if you don't want to spend any money, get rid of it. You had it for 7 years, you might not want to put that kind of money into it. Johnny B. Good says, I recently purchased an 05 Toyota Matrix 230,000 miles for $2,500. It runs well, but I get Evap codes P0441, P0442, P0446, and a new one, P0171. You got vacuum leaks somewhere. From my experience of those, it's often the Evap canister vent valve goes bad or one of the VSV valves leak, the variable switching valves. Do my video, finding engine vacuum leaks with a cigar. You don't have to use a cigar. You can use anything that creates smoke, inject it into the Evap system, and then see where the leak comes out. The mechanics want big money to fix it. Well, hey, if it runs okay, Evap codes often do nothing except trip these stupid Evap codes. I had a customer with Evap code 6 years in a Toyota Matrix, and he still drove it. It ran perfectly fine, so he didn't care. But you might try to find where the leak is coming from and fix it. If it runs okay, it doesn't really hurt anything. It does have 230,000 miles. You're always going to get some codes here and there, but somewhere you got a vacuum leak, so you might as well try to find it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.